it's not even a creep of communism anymore. In my opinion, one of the worst things that could have ever happened to a American in a capitalist society was giving them a taste of communism, a taste of socialism. That's what we had during the lockdown, especially if you were on the West Coast, California, Nevada, Washington State, Oregon. Our lockdown lasted until 2023, where we didn't have to pay rent, we didn't have to pay electricity, we didn't have to pay water bills, we didn't have to pay for the gas bill to your home. The only thing we paid for years was our Wi-Fi. And then all of a sudden, it just turned everything back on, back to normal. There are way too many people now that after they got a sample of communism, they're addicted to it. So now all of a sudden, these mayors who think that they are kings are now popping up offering to give away free stuff and to stop and start things that they cannot afford to do in the first place. And you're wondering why. It's because the way it translates into the people is free stuff for nothing. So it's like they're selling pipe dreams to people who are itching for another sample of that communism they got during the lockdowns. I don't know what these mayors, who the fuck they think they are. You got Mondami in New York talking about he's going to double the taxes on the rich from 1% to 2%. He's going to offer free bus rides and faster buses. And if the buildings aren't maintained or upgraded to their standards, they're going to take them. So you got this idiot, the new mayor, this new lesbian mayor in Washington State, in Seattle. She's now saying everything but the truth. She's talking about food deserts and stores closing. But notice she's not talking about the crime, which is why there's a food desert, which is why everything's closing. They don't want to offend the black people and the thieves in the area that are stealing. So what they do, they just pretend that the food is just disappearing and they just don't know why the stores are closing. Nothing about funding private security, refunding the police, more law enforcement, more surveillance, longer prison terms, stricter sentences, nothing like that, which is why businesses, companies, and stores are pulling out. And here's this moron. And the only thing she's missing is her septum, which she does wear, because I don't know why. This is like some lesbian enclave now in Seattle. Blacks and lesbians, for some reason, love the slum life. And here she is saying, pretending she has the power to stop stores from closing and leaving. Listen here, Ellen DeGeneres' side chick. You didn't give these stores permission to open. They don't need your permission to close. You are not God. If the theft is making it so that we cannot turn a profit and operate, we can't pay our staff because everything's being stolen, and the city and the police won't do anything about it, we're leaving. We're out. You can't make up any legislation that says, oh, we're going to just bring. No one's going to want to do business there because you don't enforce the laws. Well, what if they open up a bodega? They could open up a little market. Anything you open, people will just walk in and steal. They're communists. Even a state-run grocery store, unless you hold all the food in the back, you have armed guards in the front, and you have to give them a list, and they go get the groceries for you, then people are going to steal from there too, because you guys have created a communist commune in these areas. Remember, Chaz was also in Seattle not too many years ago. Remember the autonomous zone where people were in there just getting killed and fucked up and all kind of craziness? Yeah, that was in Seattle. And no, remember how the feds and the police didn't immediately rush in there? That place was open for a while. That's a taste of communism. That's a taste of lawlessness. Certain cultures do not like laws. You know what culture I'm talking about. Certain people don't like laws. You know what people I'm talking about. They are going to gravitate to places like Seattle, like New York, like we have in Los Angeles. because there's less and less crime. I mean, there's less and less enforcement, more and more crime, less and less accountability. Anything goes. And these people just keep on electing anyone who's promising to give them free stuff. This has to end or the whole country could unwind. Because remember, my federal tax money is used to fund these cities in their bull. I'm not going to want to pay for it. We got 3 more years of Trump. Hopefully he's going to, shut that down. But listen to what she's saying about her plans on how to keep food in Seattle.
Access to affordable, healthy food is a basic right. We cannot allow giant grocery chains to stomp all over our communities, close stores at will, and leave behind food deserts.
The stores are not stomping over your communities, dumbass. The stores have been there since before you were born. The stores are victims of you and your community. The stores are victims of you and your left-wing socialist policies. Social workers are not going to stop shoplifters. The stores are a business. And if you want, think about it, I guess her plan, what are you going to do? Seize the store? What are you going to do? If I say I'm going to close up, you're going to stop me from taking out my inventory? You're going to prevent us from closing? You can't do that. We're not your slaves. See, remember, if you're not paying for something, but I'm doing work, essentially I'm your slave. You're the means of production. There's somebody working somewhere that has to be compensated. If you want to make all this stuff free, well, then who's going to pay the people that work to bring it to you? The drivers, the people that do the picking of the food, the people that process the food, the people that package the food, the packaging itself. Who's going to work to deliver that to you if you're just going to allow it to be stolen? That's why these stores have closed. They're not stomping over your community, idiot. They are grocery stores that you literally need for sustenance. And now you guys are crying about why they're leaving, but you're not addressing the fucking elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about Lizzo. I'm not talking about, one of these other. I'm talking about the fact that crime is why these stores are closing, and she has nothing for that. She has not a word to say about that, which is insane.
Access to affordable, healthy food is a basic right. We cannot allow giant grocery chains to stomp all over our communities, close stores at will, and leave behind food deserts. Together we can build a Seattle where fresh food is for everyone, not just for those who can afford it. Food deserts are not natural. Corporations create them when they abandon our communities. As mayor, I'm excited to step up and with UFCW explore public option grocery stores to fill those gaps.
Doesn't that sound like somebody else we know? Oh yeah, Mamdani. State-run grocery stores, free groceries, but then now he's correcting people. Not free, cheap. Let me tell you, you newcomers to communism. See, my family comes from communism. We're immigrants. Let me tell you new people how this goes. Everything is unaffordable to a person that is a communist who does not want to work. $1 that you have to pay when your Section 8 is $2,500 and the government is paying $24.99 and you got to pay $1. For a lot of people, even that $1, they're going to be late paying because they don't want to pay. So even if you're talking about opening up state-run stores, who's going to pay for them? The public is going to see this as free food, not cheap food. So what are you going to do? Say, oh, the price of an apple, instead of being $1, it's going to be 49 cents. You think people are going to care? It's still currency. A communist wants everything for free. They want to live in a utopia where they can just hang out all day, do music and paint, dance around, be hippies, whatever the fuck they want to do. They want to do everything but work. They want to do everything but be parents. They want to do everything but be responsible. They want you to take care of them. They got these new things they're doing in Spain where it's like a big building and then they put a bunch of they carve out a bunch of little beds and they put like a little room and it's like a huge dorm. And people who don't want to work, people pretty much who communists, they all join into these communes there. And then they have a bed and they sleep. And then during the day, they just hang out and they network. I propose something like that here in the United States because there's such a growing class of people, a lot of Gen Z people who have abandoned the workforce. They don't believe in working. They feel like they believe in entitlements. I wanted to call them plantations, where we have big, huge areas where people who don't want to work can live for free. However, on these plantations, there is going to be a certain amount of hours. You're going to have to work in certain areas, and it's going to be very low-skilled work, but you're going to have to contribute. But housing is free, food is free, and you'll have access to free electricity and water. But we're going to call them plantations for people who don't want to be involved in society. They want to do this with whole cities. I'm just suggesting a few blocks that I'm going to convert into plantations. They want to turn Seattle into a plantation, but it's too big. Communism only works in small groups. That's why the first thing communists do when they take over is they have to cull the population. Why do you think everybody back in my home country looks like me, but everybody in Miami looks white like my mom? It's because culturally, certain people don't want to take care of themselves, but then certain people do. Those who believe in self-dependence and reliance left the country. And those who want to be taken care of by the state, they stayed. And guess what? The population was cut in a third, in half. The communists stayed. You know what they give you? You get a voucher. You go to the store. You turn in your voucher. They give you a certain amount of cheese. They give you seasoning. You get a certain weight of meat and bread and rice. And then you get the fuck out of their face. And you come back in a week. That's how you live in a communist country. Do you know how many Americans I know literally fantasize about the days of government cheese? Do you know how many people? It's not that they're not kept out of the workforce. They don't want to work. They want to be slaves. They would love a plantation where they can go there. They can get government cheese. The real thing is this. A lot of people just don't like being embarrassed. You know, when somebody works, you see somebody that goes to work, but you're a bum and you're just sitting around. It makes you feel some type of way. So when Kamala started talking about equity, it resonated with a lot of people because they hate who they are. They want everyone to be equally broke. But in capitalism, certain people can say, hey, I want to work more. I want to work harder. I want to work smarter, and I can get away from you. So then you leave those people behind. That gives these people a complex about themselves. That's why they hate people with money. That's why they say eat the rich. I'm not rich just because somebody gave me something. I'm rich because I work. You're not poor because somebody did something to you. You're poor because you're a bum. You're lazy. You took out student loans to go to school for African-American studies and to study the underwater habits of hamsters and sea monkeys in Bermuda, some ridiculous major that generates zero income. No one's going to pay you for such an idiotic specialty. It doesn't generate nothing. Why these schools prey on these autistic and dumb kids and still offer them student loans for nonsensical majors in school is predatory. It should be illegal and it needs to stop. These kids need to be in trade schools. They need to be learning things that can be applied in today's world. If you went to school for a communications degree 5 years ago, it's obsolete today. But guess what isn't obsolete? Electrical engineering. Guess what else is not? Guess what else is not obsolete? Plumbing. Guess what the AI can't do? Plumbing, electrical, build something with their hands. There is no hands. It's a fucking machine. And even when the machines have hands, they can't do this type of work. But these people get all this student loan debt and they feel entitled. They don't want to pay it. They don't want to pay for food. They don't want to pay for housing. What are you going to do with them? Businesses, because don't forget, this is still a capitalist country and we all can still choose to do business or not do business with you. You can't force me to fuck with you. These businesses are leaving these enclaves and these people are saying, well, they shouldn't do that. It's so wrong. You're not saying nothing about you're not addressing the criminals that are, hey, you're running all of our businesses out of our neighborhoods by going in there and stealing, by shooting and fighting the security guards, by threatening to sue the police when they arrest you because you don't like the way handcuffs feel. You're not supposed to like the way they feel. You know, it's crazy. I watch body cam videos nowadays. People thought that was going to expose police. It exposed you. It exposed the people. Like, I'm watching these I'm like, this is what police have to deal with every day? And you want to talk about why these businesses are leaving? You guys are insufferable in these enclaves, and the good people have evacuated. So guess who's still there? The worst of the worst. And what are they going to do? Vote in favor of anything that could benefit them at the bottom. The way it works in communism, they want everyone to be the communists themselves, the people, not just the people in charge, the individuals. They want everyone to be equally poor so that they don't give each other, they don't make each other feel insecure or give each other complexes. They want to be around other poor people. That way nobody can flex on you or stun on you or say, oh, look at my new purse. Look at my watch. They want everybody to equally have nothing. Are you okay with that? How many people in your household right now do you know that would be okay with having nothing, but they just don't want to say that because everybody around them is doing something and they kind of feel like a loser? So they work. But if they could, they'd go live on a plantation for free and just give up on life. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I'll be honest. My father had a lot of communist views. Even though my family left communism, their kids still held on to some of those beliefs. He believed in free food and free this and free that. And I remember being a little boy and saying, well, Dad, you want the government in America to feed people. My question was, for how long? And when his answer was pretty much forever, well, then how's that fair to people that got to pay for themselves to eat? Where's the equality? Where's the fairness? Why do I have to work so I can support people who want to live in this communist utopia? So I have to labor so that these people can live for free. Where does that make sense? And these municipalities allow it because these poor people who don't want to work, they still serve a benefit because they increase the census in that area, which will gain congressional seats for politicians. That's why they accept certain people not working and they give them benefits and they tell them, hey, vote for me and I'll keep your benefits going. I'll make sure you still get your Section 8 and your SNAP and blah, blah, blah. And these are people who they know don't vote. They tell them to vote, but they're not going to vote. But they still count in the census. The illegals that they're paying, they money launder the Medicaid. They're talking about the money for healthcare. That's not for healthcare. That's the bribe money. See, when they bring the illegals over here, they'll give them $2,000 a month in EBT, but then they'll give them cash benefits of $3,000 to $4,000 per family, sometimes per person. But that money is laundered to them through the Medicaid. That's why they said we need the funding for the illegals for their healthcare, because that's how they're able to keep the bribes going. I don't know what they're going to do now that Trump shut that down and the government reopened without that in there. A lot of these illegals are going to leave because remember, this was a job. They were paid to come to America. They didn't come here because they needed somewhere to go. Have you ever been to Colombia? The place is beautiful. You can work down there and live. But guess what? When they have NGOs showing up and saying, hey, you know what? We'll pay you this much a month. You take your kids. You all go to the United States. And this is what we're going to pay you. You're going to be on a contract for 5 years. And guess what? When these people don't get their money, they're going to quit. That's why Trump could not give them that money. They launder the money and pay people directly through the Medicaid. Elon Musk talked about it. It's crazy. But back to this moron, I don't know, the Nightmare Before Christmas looking lady. She is literally saying how she's going to try to force grocery stores to stay in her area, or they're going to replace them with state-run ones like Mondami was saying. But Mondami is going to fail too. They can't afford free food for everybody. It wouldn't make sense. Why would anybody go to a grocery store where you got to pay when you can just go to the state-run store and everything's free? And if it's not free and you shoplift and you get caught, And if they try to prosecute you, then you're not going to support whoever opened it. It would make opening it pointless because you're still going to have the problem with stealing. So you're going to have to give it away for free. But paying for free food every day for people who don't want to work, that are able-bodied, it's unsustainable. It's unrealistic. Communism does not work with numbers of this size. They have to cull the population, or it has to be a communist capitalist hybrid, which is kind of like what we have now, but it's not equal, because certain people who do work are penalized for being responsible. And the penalty, you have to pay for these people who are irresponsible. And that has to stop. It doesn't make sense.
Access to affordable, healthy food is a basic right. We cannot allow giant grocery chains to stomp all over our communities, close stores at will, and leave behind food deserts. Together, we can build a Seattle where fresh food is for everyone, not just for those who can afford it. Food deserts are not natural. Corporations create them when they abandon our communities. As mayor, I'm excited to step up and with UFCW explore public option grocery stores to fill those gaps.
Food in stores is not natural either. Show me 500 years ago where God said, "Let there be light," and then a Kroger's opened up and there was just food on the shelf, packaged, ready to go. That's unnatural. What are you talking about? Food deserts are not natural. Neither are grocery stores. All this stuff is artificial and man-made. It's not a desert. It's just that it is a law enforcement desert. Laws are not forced in these regions. So it's not just the grocery stores. It's all businesses are leaving. All the restaurants are closing. All the stores are closing. All the malls are closing. That's because it's a desert where there's lawlessness. There's no police there to enforce the laws. So the businesses get uncomfortable. I remember living in LA before I evacuated. I remember one of my neighbors, she had this boyfriend she used to fight with. And one day we all could hear them upstairs. He was trying to kick her door in. And this was during the George Floyd times this was like 2020. Now, I'm not her boyfriend. She ain't never gave me none, so that's none of my business. But I heard her frantically calling 911. Do you know how long it took for them to come to downtown LA? 14 hours. Basically, they didn't show up. He kicked her door in. He whooped her bad. She ended up in the hospital. I mean, you got to pick better, I guess. But the point is, I know what it's like when you live somewhere that the police can no longer enforce the laws, especially if the perpetrators are dark or brown, because they can just claim that law enforcement is racist. They can claim that laws are racist. They can claim that rules are oppressive, and prosecuting them and arresting them is racism. And if you're in a liberal jurisdiction and you're a police officer and you're caught in the middle of these allegations, you're going to be fired for doing your job. So guess what the police are going to do? Not do their job, not show up, and you're on your own. I know what it's like to live in a place like that. That's when I got the hell out of Los Angeles. Because I'm a conservative, so I'm going to defend myself. But I'm going to jail if I do that also. Or if somebody gets the drop on me. Now, so you got to choose. You'll be carried by 12 or judged by 12, carried by 6. You have to make a choice. But it's a shame. Just so I can say I live, 20 minutes from the beach. Wow, the weather's really nice. Wish I wasn't in this casket. Wow, this is a beautiful breeze today. Too bad I'm in the hospital. It's just not worth it after a certain point. You're just basically a sitting duck if you're in certain places. So it's not really just a food desert. It's a desert where there's no more laws. So there's no law enforcement. As a regular American, it's a strange feeling when you know that you call the police, they're not going to come because a bunch of other people around you told the police back in 2020 that we'll police ourselves and we don't need police anymore and blah, 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 blah. Turns out they were lying about that too. We need police. We need police more than we need the criminals. That's why I choose police over criminals. I don't give a fuck what you look like. I choose blue. That's my color. Fuck all that black and brown and yellow. Fuck all these colors. Blue. I'm not going to be a victim. I can't be a victim. I got other stuff to do. a food desert is not natural. Bitch, fuck, grocery stores are not natural. Nobody, you don't plant seeds and then a store pops up out of the ground. Somebody has to build it. The stuff in the stores, somebody has to farm it, produce it, package it, and send it. It's not just there when you wake up. But you know how many Americans don't know that? I mean, shit, there's still a huge percentage of people that think chocolate milk comes from brown cows. So we really can't be that surprised that they would vote for a socialist, a communist mayor, because she's promising state-run grocery stores. Do you know what that is when the state takes over a grocery store and now they control the means of production? Look up what the definition of that is. And see, when these states do that, these state-run grocery stores, at first they're going to have a lot of stuff like they used to when it was privately owned, but then they're going to have less and less because they're only going to be able to find less and less stuff to give away for free. And then eventually it'll be just like Venezuela. It'll be just like Cuba. There'll only be 4 or 5 things on the shelves, and everybody gets one per week with their voucher. And guess what? You haven't been working. You can't move away. And hopefully they cut off social services in other places so that these people will be trapped in these communist deserts that they created for themselves. And they can just stay there in their own little paradises. Personally, I remember being, like I said, I remember being in LA during the lockdown, and I remember finding out I don't have to pay rent anymore. It felt weird. Because I even told myself I don't want to ever get used to not paying bills. Why do you think so many men like going to jail? You think men hate going to jail? Men enjoy jail. There's no bills. There's no responsibilities. You get to hang out with your buddies all day and gamble and play dice and play poker and chess. No responsibilities, no child support. You're already in jail. You don't have to worry about going back to jail. But it's the allure of no bills and responsibility. You know, prison is easy. Being on the outside here is hard. But that's the appeal of it. Coming to these cities where everything's going to be free and you don't got to pay bills. For me, I'm uncomfortable. I want to pay my way, but I'm not a communist. I don't want the government to have to take care of me and mine. We'll take care of ourselves. Certain people understand that freedom comes with responsibility, and it's a responsibility to take care of yourself. That's what freedom is for. Not the freedom to depend on somebody else to take care of me, like the government. You know, I see a lot of women voting for this stuff, but you got to think about it. The government has been their husband. The government feeds them. We've just found that out because of the whole EBT SNAP thing. Now we know all these women live off the government for food. They live off the government for where they're going to live, housing, and then they can call police when they need protection. So where does a man even fit in anyway? No wonder feminism took over. No wonder your wife left. No wonder your kids are gay, trans. I mean, that's a natural progression of this communist creep that's coming into our lives. Order is going to have to be restored, but I'll be honest, there's no way you can go communist and come back to being responsible for yourself. There is no return. That lifestyle, and they're going to entrench these areas, and they're going to fight to the death to be poor around other poor people happily. They want their plantation. They want their slavery. They want their master. Who are we to deny them? You know, that's a lifestyle choice, just like being homeless is a lifestyle choice, just like being gay is a lifestyle choice. Just because I don't choose that lifestyle doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that I'm opting out of it. My only request is don't ask me to pay for it. I don't want to fund your communist fantasies and your utopia where you can just frolic all day, no responsibilities. I don't want to live like that. I'd rather work. I'd rather be an adult. I'd rather pay my way. I just don't want to. I don't want to live like you, and you don't want to live like me. So we don't need to coexist. We don't need to be around each other. That's why separation is okay. Segregation, when it comes to it's okay. Everybody's not the same. Mentally, we're not all the same. So forcing it doesn't make sense. If this is what they want, someone who's going to give them free groceries from state-run stores. I know what state-run stores look like. Government cheese, rice, mayonnaise, a few ounces of meat, and bread and you stretch it for a week. You know how many Americans would be more than happy with that because everyone else around them is going to be equally broke? They're going to have to get rid of the TV and they have to get rid of the internet. That way you're not watching lifestyles of the rich and famous and you start aspiring for more. You're going to want to keep them there. Why do you think we don't have internet and all that back in Cuba? Why do you think all that stuff's cut off in these communist countries? They don't want you desiring more because they understand this is an insecurity problem. You know, back in Cuba, dark-skinned people were told that the cure to racism is communism and that you're poor because you're dark and the other people are rich because they're fair-skinned. Castro lied to them, sold them a bill of bullshit. Because even after the fair-skinned people left, you're still poor because you don't want to work. But guess what? Now there's nobody around you doing better than you to give you a complex and make you feel more insecure. So now you're happy because nobody can stun on you and you can't stun on nobody else. And that's the problem. That's why in these communist areas, they're going to have to get rid of the internet, TV, because they don't want you to, because that's the problem. That's what's making these people hate the rich. They think if you go to work and you make money, you're rich. That's all it takes. That's all it takes for them to consider you as a rich person. I want to eat you because they don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. They got all that student loan debt and they don't want to pay it. And I've been telling people for years, you know, if you start giving people free rent and free shit, they're not going to let you, like in Atlanta, their new mayor, well, he was their mayor, but he won the re-election because he said, look, if you guys elect me, I'm going to freeze the rent and I'm going to freeze the water bill. People should have been asking, okay, you're going to freeze it for how long? He says through January. And what happens in January? And you try to turn their rent back on and their bills back on. They're going to protest and kick your ass out of office. So guess what he's going to do in January? Get an extension through the beginning of the second quarter. And then that's going to go into September. Next thing you know, we're still having the same conversation in January 2027. The thing is, once you start giving people free stuff, you can never stop. Because the first time that you say no, it'll be like you've never said yes. And who's that? Beyonce that said that? It's true. Once you start giving people free stuff, you can never stop and say, okay, now you got to start paying. Now they're going to think about it. All these people have been getting SNAP and EBT for generations in America. Some of these people's families have been on government assistance. I just found this out since the 70s. Some people have lived in certain apartments that were government housing, and it's been passed down. It's been passed down in the projects and, you know, in their family. It's been passed down since the early 80s. The same apartments. Let that, so, and then all of a sudden the government shuts down for 1 month. And what do these baboons start saying? We're going to rob Walmart. I'm robbing white people. So it's like, wait a minute. So the government gets zero credit for the past, 40 years of feeding you fuckers. 1 month that they can't give it to you. And now all hell breaks loose. It's not like they said, you know what, government? We got it from here. Y'all, you know what? Y'all really looked out for us, you know, through hard times, through good times, bad times. We've been living at these. This is a nice place, by the way. And food, we've been using the swiping the card. I'm 800 pounds. About 815. Yeah, I'm 5'3", 815. So the government's been good. But you know what? You know what? You don't got to worry about this month. You can give us a couple months off. We got enough sick. They didn't give a damn. 1 month and they were already threatening calamity. So you think that when you're all of a sudden going to turn the rent that, because think about it, Mondami, this lady's going to offer that next in Seattle, rent freezes. The mayor in Atlanta, they're all going to, these are all mayors. What are the odds, right? They're all offering to start doing rent freezes too. And then government owned grocery stores. So if the government takes the buildings, because remember, if you're not paying the rent, then the landlord can't pay their mortgage. Everybody is not a billionaire that just owns all their buildings outright. People have mortgages. So when they lose the building and the city has first right of refusal, now the city took the building and they're going to let you live there for what? For free? Then how are they going to pay to maintain the building? How are they going to pay for upgrades? How are they going to pay for the paint? How are they going to pay for repairs? You think a slumlord, wait until your slumlord's the city. Though the city is the biggest slumlord in New York. It's not even private owners. It's the actual city. Because there's rent control in these cities. If the rent's controlled, that means that when taxes go up and expenses go up, but you can't raise the rent, well, then you're now paying out of your pocket to do anything. So that means that you can't really afford to do anything. So there won't be any upgrades. There's not going to be any improvements. We're not going to be able to fix stuff in your house. It's not going to be fresh paint on the walls. The elevator's not going to always work. That comes with rent control, because if I can't raise your rent, then I can't afford these new expenses, because the taxes and bills, everything eventually goes up. These people who are championing these policies are not smart people. Why do you think they can't feed themselves? They're not that bright. And you're going to take voting advice from them. That's who you're going to listen to when they tell you who to vote. Dude, it's hilarious just to see where we are and where it's going. But look, if you guys want to live in like Venezuela and Cuba, which I know a lot of you do, I didn't believe it because I don't want to, but there's a lot of people that do, then you guys go for it. Start packing up, relocate to Seattle, or go to New York, or pretty soon you can go to Atlanta. I don't know what the next cities are going to be. Hopefully it's not, but I think a lot of the big cities, I see this happening eventually in Chicago when there's an election coming up. All of a sudden, some communist mayor is going to show up, maybe of South Indian descent, who knows? And they're going to have a new plan. Free buses, for rent freezes, state-run grocery stores for cheaper groceries, which means free to a communist. And they're going to start offering that in more and more places. And people in these areas who are jealous and insecure about people who work, who they think are rich, they're going to vote for these people. And there's really not much you can do about it except separate. You know, this whole way of life, there's people that don't like it and they want to destroy it. They don't have nothing else better to replace it with. It's a sad reality of where we are. Like I said, I mean, my family went through this already, but we had another country to go to. I don't know where we go if the United States falls. I mean, there are a couple of capitalist countries in South America that, you know, they don't have the infrastructure for this communist takeover anyway. But I mean, it's, you know, we're going to have to find somewhere to go, because if this spreads around the country, I don't want to live like that. That's the reason why I work. I can't live like these people no more. That's the whole point of doing something with yourself. I don't know. Let me know if you agree. Leave a comment, like and subscribe, share the video. The single boyfriend, right-wing Rico. We got a couple of the topics. I'm going to get back on live in about 20 minutes. I'm going to get something to eat. And I'll see you guys again shortly. Thanks for tuning in. America first, America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.